Hello guys, I hope you're doing alright. So today it's another special video. So I'm very lucky because I've been able to do an interview of Asher, who is the co-founder of Collective, and also Rafael Granito, who is the founder and who is the CEO of Formex. Today the live is about the collaboration that Collective and Formex has done. So we will speak first of all with Asher, so he will be able to say more about his journey. And here is Asher. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, that's my pleasure. So yes, we will speak about the beautiful watch you've done with Formex. It's not a limited edition. It's a collaboration between Collective and Formex, right?
Exactly. It's an exclusive to Collective shop, meaning that it will be produced in limited batches, but there's no limitation. So I'm very happy in this watch world to be able to say, if you want it, you can have it.
Perfect, perfect. So can you tell us about your meeting with Rafael and Marcus in New York, and what did you like about them?
Sure. So I'll start just by saying, like everyone who is a watch enthusiast, I'm as is my partner, a lucky guy who's managed to transition from being purely an enthusiast to also being in the business. We've had the opportunity to meet lots of different people, lots of different personalities. And some folks are very boisterous, some folks are quieter, but not everybody is as earnest and open and kind as the guys behind Formex. And that struck my partner Gabe and I right away. We met them for the first time in Chicago last year when we were there at the Wind Up Watch Fair, wanted to hang out some, and we set up drinks at a bar that I used to hang out in when I was younger in New York City in October. And we went out, dark bar, we sat down, and our plan was just to talk through maybe something that we could do together, just a hypothetical. And out of nowhere, Rafael reaches into his pocket and pulls out a dial. Says, you should take a look at this. And this doesn't happen. I mean, just to be very clear with people, like showing up at a bar with a prototype, that's not a thing,
Even more,
but it was for him.
Even more, you are not working on a collaboration or on a project. He's like, I have this. You may interesting in that beautiful dial.
Exactly. We weren't even a retailer at that point. So it was purely based on trust. And he showed it to us, and immediately Gabe and I were like, what are we looking at? And we spent, I walked outside, I started looking at this, I'm like, how is this possible? This is beautiful. And what I was looking at was a treated griffé, so basically scratched dial, made entirely of bronze, but treated so that it would not patinate. And speaking of somebody who has a love-hate relationship with bronze, this really, really spoke to me. So we sat down and we immediately started going through, what could the design of this look like? How could we play with this? How do we bring out something that really does what we love about Formex, that nails the technical ability of and design language of the brand with a material innovation? And that's where we ended up with the watch that we're here to talk about today.
No way. Lucky. You are so lucky. And yes, because you and I, we have a special relationship with Formex. We know the people behind the brand quite very well, but I would like to have your point of view on Formex. What do you like from them? Why do you like Formex, basically?
Sure. So by virtue of what I do for a living, I get to handle a great deal of watches and mostly independent watches. Mm-hmm. That's where my passion and my personal love lies. And, you start to see things when you handle hundreds of watches. You see trends and tropes. You see where corners get cut, and you see where people lean in. And one of the things that constantly amazes me when I handle a Formex watch is that there are no cut corners. The finish is exceptional. The fit is exceptional. The tolerances are exceptional. Everything is thought through. And the level of flexibility that's provided to somebody, an owner, just in their ability to, decide, well, today I'm going to wear this black bezel in relief, but, tomorrow I might not want to. So I'll just take the bezel off and put a different one on.
Why not?
Exactly. That's not something I've ever seen before. And aside from the fact that it's proprietary, it's really enthusiast driven. So for us, when I think about the kinds of brands that I want to sell, which are really the kinds of brands that I want to wear, I ultimately am looking for the folks that offer an enthusiast point of view. And that's exactly what Formex does. They are so focused and obsessed on delivering a good experience for the enthusiast, not just the average, watch guy, that they deliver so far above and beyond what is expected at the price point. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally aligned with you, and we've been able to see just very quickly the watch. And I would like to ask you, can you give us 3 words that describe the most the watch, and also the journey you lived during its elaboration?
Sure. I would say it's radiant, it's technical, and it's extremely comfortable. It's 4 words, but we're going to combine extremely comfortable.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
No, I mean, look, I think a really good test for a watch for me, there are watches that are incredible pieces of high horological art. There are pieces that, are tools, etc. But the test for me is when I wake up in the morning, when I look on my nightstand, am I still excited to see the watch there? And do I want to wear it again and again? Because for serial watch collectors, I think you appreciate this. You might have, if you're lucky enough, 2 watches, 3 watches, 4 or 5. You wake up one day and you're like, oh man, I actually wanted to wear that one. What I find really fascinating about the watch I'm wearing is I've been wearing this watch since I got it on Monday, and I haven't changed. And this is even through another watch release that I just had earlier this week. So it really speaks, I think, to the incredible comfort and quality of it. And then as a journey, one of the things that I think isn't a surprise based on how we described the personalities of Raphael and Marcus is that working with them was very direct and clear. From day one, they're open to feedback, so are we. They're open to changes and questions, so are we. And it's a very natural conversation. It doesn't feel like supplier and buyer. It really feels like a couple of folks that are trying to make something good.
Yeah.
And if you're not if you're not a member of the Formex Collector group on Facebook, it's a great place to join because Raphael's in there, Marcus is in there, and like a handful of other brands like Moser, for example, the CEOs are really, really, really available. The same thing with IWC with Chris Granger Hair. They're very available and they care. And I think there is a through line with those brands where from the top down, accessibility and openness to feedback is part of the culture.
Even more when you are a client of those brands, you know that you can ask the CEO saying, I have a question or I have a feedback about the watch. And there is that you can bring improvement to the brand, what makes it more interesting when you are wearing, because you say, okay, if tomorrow I'm buying that beautiful reef that I'm just only able to see through pictures, I know that if I have any questions or etc. or any feedbacks, I will be able to reach out to Marcus or to Raphael, which is so impressive.
Yeah, and I think this actually brings up an interesting point about what luxury really is, because in my mind, I've come to think about luxury being defined as access. Like, what is luxurious? Luxurious is walking into a store when you're ready to buy something and the thing is available, right?
Yeah.
Luxury is being able to reach out to the maker and the manufacturer of something and have a relationship and a rapport with them. And for me, like, I think about that as being more luxurious than sitting down in a very fancy boutique and having some champagne, but there's nothing to actually buy.
Yeah.
And, I realize, and I fully realize that the perception of what one individual considers luxurious is very different than what somebody else may consider luxurious. Completely respect that. But I do think, for me at least, this is part of what speaks to me about all this.
Which is the perfect transition of my other questions, which is about availability, disponibility of the watch.
Yes.
So we are the 25th of April. The collaboration is now live. How many pieces are available now on the website?
Sure. So in this initial batch, there are 50 pieces.
Okay.
It's going to be available for any clients in North America at collectivehorology.com. If you don't want to type that in, you can also do collective.watch. That'll bring you right there. You can also buy them in person from us if you're in San Francisco or going to the Wind Up Watch Fair. We'll have them there. And if you're based in Europe, we have you taken care of as well. We have a small allocation that's being held above the 50 in Formex, at Formex's headquarters. So if you're in Europe, you can buy one directly from them if you want to. However, if you're in the United States, you'll have to buy them from us. Okay. Once we've sold through that first batch of 50, we will reorder more. So if you want them today or tomorrow, as it were, you can place your order today. It'll arrive tomorrow. And once we sell out of that, we'll bring in our next tranche of 50.
And do you think you will be able to, how to say that, to separate you from those 50 watches that surround you today? That's quite very nice. You are surrounding by those beautiful 50 pieces.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually looking at like many Formex boxes on the other side of the screen. Yeah, look, I think there was a phenomenon over COVID where a watch would come out and just go, and that was very frustrating for everybody, you know, on both sides, because in the end, a $2,000 purchase is a very expensive purchase, and having the moment to think about it, make sure it's something that you want, and then do it is really important. So I could not be happier that this watch is not limited, because if you love it and you want to think about it for a minute, you can. So I sort of hope they don't all just go, because I want people to have the opportunity to take a moment. But if they do, we know we'll have more coming in, and that's very different than our traditional portfolio or collective series watches where we produce them and then they're done. Yeah. So, you know, that'll be a very nice feeling for us, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. And to conclude, do you have any information you would like to share to the audience about this collaboration, the piece, what you've lived with Formex? The stage is for you.
Sure. Well, what I would just say is, you know, my partner and I, as I mentioned earlier, are very passionate about finding horological secrets. And we view Formex as, we have a mixed feeling about this, because I want it to remain a secret, but it deserves to be so much bigger. So I hope it is. But our hope in, you know, following us and what hopefully we're demonstrating in our work with Formex is, by spending time following us on Instagram, just catching up to what we're doing, we hope we can show you things that you may not have ever seen before. The Radiant Bronze that we did with Formex is, I think, a perfect example of letting a brand speak for itself, but bringing something really special out from that, from their voice. And this is something that we pride ourselves in being able to do with others as well. So if this excites you, not only will we have more things coming with Formex in the future, we will also have some other exciting projects with other brands that I think are just as passionate and led by wonderful people too. And, you know, in this world of independent watches, there aren't competitors. You know, everybody succeeds if we all continue to support each other. So it gives me a lot of joy. And honestly, I just could not be prouder of what we were able to make here. So thank you.
And also, I invite people to look at your newsletter, which is very interesting. I'm following it. It's always interesting. I'm always like, oh, okay, what they've done during those weeks, and okay, so no, that's interesting. First of all, I would like to congratulate you and your partner for what you've done, achieved, and what you are working on the future. It is just as perfect as a passionate, as a watch guy, I want to see. So congrats, Asher.
I appreciate it. And I hope I can make it to Paris and meet you in person sometime soon. It's been 5-6 years since I've been to Paris, which is way too long.
Let's work on it. Asher, thanks a lot. I'm doing the second part with Raphael, and we'll speak more about the technical things of that piece. And maybe, yes, if you are not in Paris, maybe I will be in the US very soon, I hope.
Excellent. Please come over. I'll buy you a beer.
Perfect. See you. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day.
perfect. And now let's speak about what Formex has done for that beautiful watch. But you will see with Raphael. Hello, Raf. It's a pleasure having you here, and it's such a pleasure for me to be able to speak with you and to speak about that beautiful, we can't say collaboration, but in one hand, it's a collaboration, but the important things, it's not a limited edition that you've done with Collective, right?
Yes. Hi, Baudouin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's a retail exclusive with them. So it's a collaborative piece, and yeah, so it's only available for sale at them, and we have a very few limited pieces here for European customers. I think they're already gone right now. So yes, so they're more available at Collective right now.
Which is perfect. When we look at the watch, there is one thing that are very important, and that makes the watch as stunning as possible. So it's a reef, and on that beautiful piece that I love to wear, there is that beautiful dial, that bronze dial that we are not used to see. So could you first explain us why we are not used to see bronze dial on watches?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I think it's got to do with the with the properties of the material that it oxidizes really fast. So when you're producing it, you have to really be on point with if you don't want it to oxidize, you have to treat it accordingly just after putting on the finish. So it might be that, or it might be that bronze has traditionally been a material that has been used for cases, especially also on dive watches. But I really like the the aspect, the sheen of the material when it's still fresh and unoxidized. So since we almost never use surface coatings on our watches, the dial is the best way to preserve that kind of surface without it oxidizing. By applying a protection on it right after you finish it. So yeah, I don't know why others don't do it that much. It's quite rare to have a bronze dial, and but yeah, for me, it made sense to actually put the bronze into the watch and make it part of the face of the watch.
When we look at the watch and when we did dive into the dial, it seems that the bronze dial brings something more brighter to the watch. So,
yes.
And that's something we are not used to see. If you are using maybe a gold dial, it will be not as brighter as the bronze gives to the watch.
Yeah, there really is a beautiful sheen. It's probably due to the composition of the bronze. And yeah, it's something that is a bit more lively than other materials, and this is also why we picked a very simplistic way and purist way of finishing it. So there's not a lot of stuff going on the dial, and this is also why we chose the vertical satin finish, because the Reef collection usually has a sunray finish, and also on most colors also color gradient, a smoke, dégradé. And we really opted to not do any of that on this dial, because when we made a couple of prototypes, to test all different finishings that we could use on this dial, months ago when we discussed this project, we did about 15 prototypes with different finishings, different grains, and this grain of this vertical satin finish or brush finish was really what popped out the most and what really made the dial come alive. So it was also a challenge for our photographer, Zach, who it was like he came back to us with shots and we're like, it's really hard because the dial is so alive in the lights that you kind of have to see it to really appreciate the beauty of it, really, because it's depending on how the light hits it, you don't see the brushing, and on other times you see an extremely well defined and pretty pretty thick grained brushing that really pops out. And yeah, so it's I would say it's one of our most alive dials that we have. We always try to make them come alive in different lighting conditions through our finishing and lacquering and all of these processes in the dial manufacturing. And that one is really one that is alive.
Because so you told us that it took you almost 15 prototypes to find the right finishings, and when you find the right finishings you have to find the right grain to have the right what you want to see and what you want to show to the people. So how long does it take to find the right balance between what you have in your head and what you have in your hand at the end of the process?
It really depends on on the actual situation. Sometimes I'm doing something or doing nothing or laying in bed, and when I think about a new model, it pops right into my head. I know exactly what it's going to look like, and then I try to come as close as possible or hit that really spot on. And sometimes through the process of prototyping and designing and sketching, you'll find new elements and you discover stuff that would work, or you want to try out new things that you hadn't thought of before, but that spring into mind while you're actually developing. So, it's a mix of both. And the process, the time it takes for that process is also very varied. I mean, we're lucky enough to have Cadranor in our group, and you've visited them, and it kind of saves time to drive up there and play around and play with different grains of finishing, play with different finishing. So I really like to do that, and that's we're very lucky to be able to do that, and that might accelerate things a little bit, and also gives us the possibility to push it a bit further.
Exactly.
And go another couple of miles sometimes than if we had to send back and forth with other suppliers.
And so you've done all that work with, in one hand, Cadranor, the idea that you have in your head, but one day you have the final prototype in your hand, the one that
hopefully
the clients will be able to put on our wrist. What was your feeling when you first handled that final prototype?
I really enjoyed how it came together. I mean, the most striking detail of it, except for the case that we already know, was the dial. And so when you're playing around with these prototypes and you have the first assembled one in your hand, you already see. So it's not a big shock or a big surprise when you finally encase the first prototype and it looks nice, because you already had it kind of in your head. But it's always nice to see that it actually, in reality, it's going to look just as nice or even nicer than what you had in mind. So yeah, it was a big moment of satisfaction to have seen it.
Which is better. Let me go back to the fact that dial is bronze, and one of the characteristics of that material is oxidation. And you mentioned it, when we are manufacturing bronze, we have to pay attention to avoid oxidation. And in your process, you had to use a certain treatment. So could you explain us what can be done to stop bronze oxidation, and what you've done in order to stop the bronze oxidation on your dials?
Yeah, so it's a very thin layer of special lacquer that is used in dial manufacturing, and that prevents the material to come into contact with air and to oxidize. And the challenge there, as always, when applying lacquer to a dial that has a finishing that you want to pop out, is it has to be as thin as possible in order not to cover up the finishing, not to make it too even, not to fill in all those beautifully brushed lines that create that make the dial come alive. So it's always you want to make it as thin as possible, or apply it as thinly as possible, but at the same time it needs to protect. So yeah, there's definitely a challenge, but anyways, the dial manufacturing is kind of an art. It's very hard, and you know, the people who are actually hand spraying them are kind of artists. So.
Exactly. All that watch is a question of equilibrium. And with the Tourbillon Watch team, we would like to congratulate you and your team and collective for that beautiful artwork.
Thank you
again, Raf. It was such a pleasure. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy that piece. And I hope a lot of people will be able to wear it as soon as possible.
Yes. Come see us at One and Round Wind Up Fair in San Francisco next week, starting on Friday. We're actually going to be there with Collective, and we're going to have the pieces there. And we'll be selling some if there are some left.
Which is perfect. Ralph, again,
thank you so much.
Thanks a lot
for having me.
See you very soon.
Bye, everyone.
Guys, if you enjoyed the watch, do not hesitate to send us comments or text, and if everything was as clear as possible,